Happy summer, everyone, and welcome back to our Sky Tonight program. My name is Seth Mayo. I'm the curator of astronomy for the Lohmann Planetarium. In this episode, we're covering the dates of June 21st through June 27th, 2021. We'll start things off by talking about the position of Venus above the west after the setting sun and the new NASA missions that just got approved to this planet in the future. We'll also talk about Mars passing over the wonderful Beehive star cluster in Cancer the Crab. And we'll mention the moon as it goes through its phases towards a full moon phase and where it will be later in the month. So let's get to it. As we look towards the west after sunset, we're seeing more and more of what looks like a really bright star-like object, and that is the planet Venus. By far, the brightest planet that we can see in the sky. It looks like a non-twinkling star. And it's always interesting to talk about Venus. Venus is the hottest planet in the solar system, where temperatures get up to 900 degrees Fahrenheit because of that super thick atmosphere of carbon dioxide that traps the heat and also drives up the pressures. There's extreme pressures on the surface. And very recently, we discovered, or possibly discovered, that phosphine may exist in its atmosphere, which could indicate the presence of life that may have created the phosphine. But we're not sure if that's the case or even how much phosphine there really is in the atmosphere, but it's interesting nonetheless. And NASA just approved 2 new missions to Venus, and that's really exciting because NASA hasn't done a Venus mission in about 30 years. One mission is called Da Vinci Plus that will send a probe through the atmosphere of the planet to learn more about that and determine if there was a global ocean, a water ocean on the surface. And the other mission is called Veritas, which will send a probe to Venus to orbit around the planet and study the geology remotely to understand the history of the features on the planet, the volcanic history, just to know more about that side of Venus, which is very, very exciting. So it's really great to know that we're going to be exploring this planet more and more, and that we have a great view of it in the sky right now towards the west, and it's rising higher and higher as we go through the next few weeks as Venus goes around the sun in its orbit. Continue to look in the west a little bit later into the evening. You can see Venus has gotten pretty low by then, but what's great is that Mars, the red planet, is still hanging on in this part of the sky. It's gotten quite a bit lower through the year, but we can still see it. But what's really great about Mars right now is over the next couple days through this week, Mars will be crossing over a really cool cluster of stars that we mentioned a few episodes ago, and this cluster sits inside a dim constellation known as Cancer the Crab. You find Cancer located right here. Cancer is a tough constellation to see, but it's there, and actually one left over from kind of the spring and winter time a little bit, more of a spring constellation. But inside of that is a cluster of stars called the Beehive cluster, or Prasepe. Prasepe means the manger, but a lot of people call it the Beehive cluster. It looks like a swarm of bees, especially when you look at it through a telescope. So if we zoom in here, this is the beginning of the week, we can see Mars just below the cluster that we find here. This is an open cluster of stars. And if we progress time over the next couple days through the week, you can watch Mars slide over it. This is pretty cool. So this is on the 21st on Monday. Get to the 22nd on Tuesday, you're getting over the cluster. 23rd, it's right in the middle of it. Now this exact position can be different depending on where you are, but for the most part, we'll be crossing over kind of mid-week here. And as we continue going through the week, we'll see Mars kind of move past it and above it as we move to the end of the week as well. So for those who are astrophotographers, this may be a great opportunity to catch Mars, which is pretty small now because we're quite far away from it, but to catch that planet and the star cluster behind it. That would be a really great opportunity because the cluster is very photogenic. The stars are bright, and these are a group of older stars, a lot of larger kind of red giant stars. There are some white dwarf stars, which tells you stars that have already gone through most of their life and then died, and other main sequence stars that have gone through their life quite a bit. The cluster is about 600 light years away and about 600 to 700 million years old. It's one of the most populated star clusters, at least open clusters, to our planet. So it's amazing to see here. If we want a better view of it, let's take a look at it in Space Engine. So here we have a great view of Mars traveling a couple 100 million miles to the red planet. And what a year it's been for this planet with that new Perseverance rover driving on the surface, looking for past signs of life pretty soon. The Ingenuity drone helicopter that's been flying around. It's been awesome. And a couple other missions from other countries too that have been studying the planet now. So there's a lot of Mars exploration going on. It's a very exciting time. So if you look in the background, you'll see the Persepi cluster here. And again, it's about 600 light years away, quite farther than Mars is. So we can actually fly over to it, as we've done before in the past, and get to the cluster of these bright stars that we've been talking about. And it is bright, especially through a telescope. You just see a lot of vivid, bright stars in your field of view, and even through binoculars, it is great as well. And you're seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of stars in the cluster. And these stars, again, are about 600 to 700 million years old. At least the cluster collectively is that old. Many of these stars are much older than that. But it's an amazing area of space. And it's nice when different objects in our solar system kind of coincide with deeper objects much farther away. If you're paying attention to the moon this week, you'll notice it's in its larger phases. And starting on Monday the 21st, you'll see it's in a fairly large waxing gibbous phase that we find right there. And it will be above a large grouping of stars that look like an S shape. I mentioned in the last episode, this is the constellation Scorpius, a great summertime grouping of stars here in the southeast. As we continue through the week here, we'll find the moon move past or through Scorpius, very near the heart of the Scorpion, Antares, that bright red supergiant star that we find there, and continue towards the horizon, at least if you're out at the same time, until the 24th when we have a full moon. And the full moon this month in June is called the strawberry moon, and that's because strawberries in certain parts of the world are being harvested. It's the strawberry season, so it's been given that name. And if you look at the moon low in the sky right after sunset, you'll be seeing it through more atmosphere. It will turn it that kind of reddish color, and that can work with the strawberry moon name as well. So you'll find that on the 24th, and this is also near what's called a perigee moon, when the moon is closer to us and full. Some people call it a supermoon. It depends on who you ask. Some people don't consider this a supermoon, that kind of unofficial term, but the moon will be just a little bit bigger, a little bit brighter, something you may not notice, but it is close to a perigee moon, which technically happens the night previous on the 23rd. If we go out a little bit later and allow the moon to get a little higher in the sky and then progress through the rest of the week, we'll find that the moon will get closer and closer to a planet that we're now starting to see starting at about midnight, which is great. So let's continue on to the 25th and 26th, 27th here. By the end of the week, you'll see the moon will then be in its waning gibbous phases here, and near this bright object of Saturn, the ringed planet in our solar system. And not far below and to the left is the planet Jupiter. So those two planets have steadily been rising higher and higher in the east and earlier in the evening. But at the end of the week, if you're looking for the moon, again, you'll find it near the planet Saturn, which is a nice celestial pair to look at. I really appreciate you checking out another edition of our Sky Tonight program. Thank you for tuning in. And if you're in the area, please stop by the Museum of Arts and Sciences and maybe come for one of our shows in our Lohman Planetarium. We're running them every single day. If you want to know more about our show schedule and what's going on at the museum, you can go to our website. I hope to see you back here again. Thank you, take care, and of course, happy stargazing.